Welcome to OpenFrame, a podcast by Pixieset, the place for photographers and other creatives to have inspiring, honest, and uplifting conversations.
Well, hello, Wing.
Hello.
From stormy England to stormy Amsterdam. You're
Yes.
in Amsterdam, right?
I'm in Amsterdam, yes.
How are you today?
I'm doing good, despite having to bike through the storm. I can tell you, it's not easy, but yes, I'm at home now.
That is the most Dutch thing I've heard, to bike through the storm.
Yeah, public transport is not my thing. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you live in Amsterdam, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for making time today to talk to me and to our audience. I'm so excited to have you as a guest today because I heard you speak in November at the
non-conference.
At the non-conference. I heard you speak at the 9 Dots conference. There we go. About the School for Millennials, which you're the founder of. And I was like, who is this woman? She's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
She's so cool. Your presentation knocked it out of the park. It was amazing. The best thing I've seen in a long, long time. Just incredible. And everything you spoke about, the millennial struggle and burnout and all of that, would love to touch on this today. But before we do, give us a little introduction. Who is Wing and where is she and what does she do?
So yes, I'm Wing. I live in Amsterdam. In 2017, I founded 3310 School for Millennials. Yes, it sounds like the 3310 of the Nokia, the 3310 that we had. And currently, I also work for a technical university, as a program coordinator in AI. So a bit of a different field, but nice and challenging.
You already revealed the name 3310.
Okay, sorry, cool. You wanted to ask about it.
Oh no! I know I wanted to make a dramatic reveal. No, just kidding. It's such a great name. I was like, when I heard it, I actually laughed. And maybe we're the only ones that find it funny because the Nokia 3310 was indeed everyone's first phone.
Yes.
Well, everyone that is kind of our age.
Yes. We're indestructible, I would say. No, and
yes.
We last really long on a battery, so that's good.
They are indestructible. That's true. They last longer than our phones now. So loved it. Loved to play Snake on it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
The website of the School for Millennials says it's a school for grown-ups, basically. You actually say in the description, why is there no school for grown-ups? Yes. Right? Yes. Why do we stop going to school at some point? And I'd love to know, how did that even happen? Why did you feel the need to found a school for millennials? Where did the idea come from? How did you pivot into that?
Yeah. So I was, we're in the same age, so I'm a millennial, and when I was younger, not that I was per se very into a high achiever or something, but I think when I was studying, there was this thing called high potential and all that, and you just want to have a good career because you studied. My parents didn't study, for example, so you want to do it better than them because they worked hard for them. And so I actually did the traditional thing. I went into engineering because job security, and I also kind of liked it. And at some point, I ended up in a corporate organization, and also there trying to make a career. And I was doing pretty well. But then I got burned out, and I actually wasn't really expecting it because I thought I took the right precautions to not get burned out. I love to work, but I also knew I need to stop at the right time. I was just started living in Amsterdam, so I was also busy with my social life, setting up a life here, doing sports, going to parties, and all that. And and at some point, I don't know, there was a day where I felt, for the first time in my life, I really don't want to do this. It's very intrinsic. It's just, it feels like a bit of an allergic reaction, and Because I had really trouble to accept that feeling, because I always thought like once you stop, it means you quit and then you give up. And I felt a bit like, why would you give this up? You know, I have a perfect life, I have a good job, good career, I have friends and all that. So why would I not do this job? At least that was really for me, that was it. And during this burnout recovery, I had to go through some personal development steps in there. Of course, you face yourself, you feel filled, and at some point, I could just take a step back and to see, okay, what is my life about? And then I thought it was kind of weird that I studied for so long, and that I would have a life where like 80% I will be looking at a screen. And that was basically your job. And then also maybe when you get home, it's like, is this really a life that I really want? Is it really making me happy? And I was fortunate to take that step back and to see, like, to reflect, well, is this really for me? But I saw a lot of my fellow colleagues or young people that struggle with that same feeling, like, is this really what I want to do? Is the next step, you know, to buy a house, to have a relationship, to have kids? Is that really what I want? And I saw these friends and colleagues, I saw them lose a lot of energy. They just thought like, well, this is it then, fine, we'll just do this. This is how I live my life. I was like, this kind of sad. We're like in the mid-20s, end of 20s, beginning 30s. We're still young. And we already feel like we're like, I don't know, like our parents. That's not what I want, at least. So in this search of why, or the reasons why I got burned out, I realized certain things that our generation grew up in and we were not really prepared for, not in the right way, not at school at least. So, for example, internet came up. I remember when I was a teenager, we had a lot of time to be on the internet, even though it was very expensive. But of course, it really changed in the way how we think. For example, how we look up things, how we connect with each other, how we do business nowadays, how we work. And I think these challenges, for example, when do you turn your laptop off when you can constantly look at your emails or constantly be connected with your friends or your colleagues or anything? How do we deal with that? And I think we're not protected, but we do need to figure out how we're going to do it, because apparently a lot of people burn out because of certain dilemmas that we deal with. So I wanted to create a school where we come together and learn from each other. I started from myself that I would give my own input, of course, my own lessons, but to create a space where we at least can talk about these things and we really actually make time for ourselves to think about, because I think in our daily lives, there's rarely time where you don't really need the time to reflect and to create that space where you can and actually ask the questions that we fear. For example, are you happy? Do you really want this? Why do you put so much pressure on yourself? Why do you have these expectations of yourself? Just to talk about it already, I see that it takes off a lot of pressure from ourselves, and it's kind of a release. And we just figure it out. And then you realize a lot of people will deal with these struggles, and with more people, you have more solutions. So, yeah.
That is, I love that. With more people, you have more solutions.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's like you have a lot of, I think from our parents, you have a certain perspective in how you should live your life, right? And now you see, especially online, you see all these images of how you can live your life, but it also stresses us out because, you constantly have to think for yourself, is this the life that I want? Is this what I want? Should I compare myself with this person? And then we follow people, literally online, we follow people just to see what they're doing, but we never ask ourselves, is this for me? Because I think if you do realize maybe this is not for me, you can be happy for someone else that they've chosen that path, and you won't be so jealous or you won't be so doubtful about yourself anymore.
Now, I'm sure you are familiar with like the cynicism. I'm sure you like about millennials,
Yes.
and the avocado toast, and we're like the generation that complains and blah blah and all of that, and we're overwhelmed. But why? And what would you say to those? Like when people, and I have had these conversations as well, where people are like, but are millennials really that overwhelmed? Isn't every generation overwhelmed?
Yes,
Like
I
for
get that a
different
lot.
reasons.
Yeah.
Like what makes us more overwhelmed than, other generations? Like what is the difference?
So yeah, I think if you have older generations, you have, like, we all know the midlife crisis, I guess, or at least people understand what a midlife crisis is. I think from this is my opinion, midlife crisis come like, okay, you grow up, at some point you get a job, you go to work, you have a family, you have everything set, basically what our parents had, and at some point you realize maybe this is not for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want this is not the life that I want to live. I only have so many years left still. How do I want to live my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think as millennials we get this question way early in our life, so we actually don't have given the time to actually settle down in a job and to work through that. We get these questions already nowadays, especially during our teenage years, maybe even in studying. What do you want to study? What do you want to become? And then at the same time, you have to deal with all the other stuff, like that it's a good thing. We live in a world of wealth, but like in the many things you can do online, the many things you can do offline, all these festivals, these parties, well, not now when Corona, but like there's a lot of fun things, traveling, for example. So and when you're young, and when this older generations constantly, of course, say you're spoiled and you should work first and blah blah blah. Okay, you do that, you do it in a job, but you end up in a job where often you're not really protected from work itself. So work is constantly around. A previous generation might not have to work with a computer that much, but we just are very familiar with it, which is great. And that's how older generations see our talent. But on the other hand, we can go work around the clock if we want to, because we're constantly online. We like that flexibility, but I don't think it's always that healthy either. So you see, like remote working becomes popular, especially now. If you want to go to, I don't know, Bali and just sit there with your laptop, fine. But yeah, you're constantly on. And I think at that young age, dealing with so much impulses and not having someone to say, maybe you should calm down, because why would you? If you're more productive, it would be great for the company, right? Mm-hmm. I think then it's really hard not to be affected to get in there, because the competition is also high. Even though you hear now, yeah, there's more job opportunities and all that, but still the competition is high to get a real good job, especially a job that you love, which is also another pressure that we get. And the world is not designed for jobs that you love. The world is designed for jobs with financial benefits and status and power. Mm-hmm. So, and that also is not per se what we want. I think we do have the luxury to think about happiness, yes, but that causes also a lot of stress, because who knows what that means, who has figured it out.
Yeah, it's different for everyone, like what happiness means. And I guess like our parents weren't concerned with a job, at least mine, with a job that they love. They just
needed to work.
Yeah, they just had a job to survive and feed the family. Yeah. That was it. Like,
well, I feel like even looking like an international job market, let's say we're not competing with our own country anymore. You're not competing with people from your own skills. You're competing with the whole world. That also is a lot of pressure. Yeah. And also like, so you could have a couple diplomas and still not get a job. So what does that mean? What does education mean then? And then you realize you maybe chosen to study that young, and you didn't know what you wanted to become. Yeah. Then it's really, I think, a mental step to really think like, oh, maybe I want to do something else. And to tell your surroundings that, I think is very tough, because people build up expectations of you, and you have your own expectations. For example, myself, I also thought I needed to continue with engineering, because, I studied it. It's good it's a good job, and there was always a job opportunity. But what if it doesn't really make me happy? No.
Yeah.
What do you do then? Then you tell your parents, thank you for your money, but no, I don't want to. Bye.
Was that hard for you to separate yourself from, as you just said previously, like, does this work for me? What do I want? Was that hard for you to separate yourself from those expectations, like of your family, what was set in front of you before you, and actually sit back and think, wait, but do I want this?
Yeah, so it was really hard because I realized a lot of these expectations I had or felt that I had were very internalized. So I do believe when you're young, you don't know what's right from wrong. So you learn that from your environment, right? From your parents, your teachers, anyone around you. And yeah, I these expectations that people have back then from what is right and wrong, of course, you incorporate that in yourself, in your thinking. And when I realized, oh, I'm getting burnout, so apparently my body doesn't like this. I was really removed from myself. I have to really think, who am I then? This sounds such a weird question to say, but what did I really want, and what did my parents want for me, or what did my surroundings wanted from me? And what if all the things that I believed about myself were actually not myself? I think that was the scariest part, because then I thought, I really don't know who I am. Who am I? Do I actually have a personality? That's what I thought.
Oh my goodness. Yes to all of this.
Yeah. So I was like, am I just smiling because someone told me constantly to smile, or am I choosing this, or do I like this? It's very simple things. Huh? Yeah. Do I make this choice just because my parents told me to do this way, you know?
Yeah.
And then you realize, of course, a lot of things are not bad, huh? And they have brought you where you are right now. You survived in life, and that's fine. It's just, I think right now is the time. Do I really need to live up to their expectation, or in that model that they gave me? And they gave me a model to be who I am right now. But now I can make my own choices. And then the hardest part then is that the choices that you might make, the people that you highly respect might not respect those choices. And I think that is really the toughest thing that you will probably face. But once you've done that, and I think it's even harder in these days, because I think in previous generations you live either in a smaller town or a city, but you're also not affected by online. So you see it right now, if you post a picture or anything, you get likes. Well, we love likes, of course, but you also have bad comments. And so there's a lot of opinions, and it's becoming more opinionated and more outspoken what other people think of you without even knowing you. So it's really hard not to get affected by these comments, even if it's like a stranger saying like, what the hell are you doing with this picture? You know, it does affect you a little bit. It's just a little stab. Yeah. And we're very connected, or at least there's a lot of people on social media. So I get that it's very stressful also sometimes.
It is. And it's like walking that line between not wanting to betray yourself. Yeah. Like we are that generation with that privilege, in that position. We can explore, like, okay, who are we? What do we actually want? So we do it, and we try not to betray ourselves, and see what fits us, but also still craving community, because it's not just all about individualism, right? Yeah. Is that what do millennials want? What is it that millennials actually want?
So I think it's a very contradictory thing. In some way, there are so many of us, and we're constantly compared in a group. Saying we're the group millennials is also something we all don't like. You know, we're just in one big bucket. We're all the same. We're not, of course, because we're all different people. So because we are part of this big bucket, and there's some kind of stigma or some kind of, certain opinion about this, our generation, we want to be individual. And I think if you look at our job market, it asks us to be individual or to be extraordinary, because if you need an extraordinary resume to stand out to get that job. So we actually, you need to have a different thing, even though the wheel has been invented for so many times, but you still constantly have to find a way that makes you stand out, at least, also to really survive.
Really exhausting.
Yeah, but then on the other hand, I do think we are more isolated, because we do our own thing, but it's we are more removed from having conversations. I think maybe our generation is still okay, but for example, calling someone up, that's scary for a lot of people. Just, just
Yes,
to call someone up to feel, I think it's maybe a bit of a fear of rejection, or
maybe, yeah.
yeah, right, because you have a direct conversation, you don't have much time to think. In a text you can think, or an email or whatever. So now you have actually a conversation, and maybe they ask questions that you don't expect and all that. And I think that yeah, we do want to belong, and we don't really have, we yeah, like, I think we feel a bit more disconnected nowadays from our bodies, because we use it as a tool. We just use it. Oh, we do sports. We good physical health is fine, but as long as it makes me really productive for my work, this is a really weird thought. And disconnected from each other, in a sense that it's sometimes really hard. It's harder to have these conversations about our fears. It's easier with a lot of distraction. So don't want to think about myself. Let's start up some Netflix, or or do something else. So
Yes.
the means to entertain ourselves, or to distract ourselves from the questions that matter, they're in abundance. So but I think we all feel the same pressure, and I think we think that other people expect things from us, that we have this high expectations from us, but actually I don't think so. So for example, in my work, I ask people to open up about you've experienced yourself, but what do you must do for yourself? And just having this conversation, and realize, oh, I don't feel bad that I feel bad sometimes, or that I'm not always happy, even though I have everything I could wish for in my life. Still, I don't feel happy, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do want to belong. I do think so.
Yeah, we do. I guess the previous generations, again, it's not everyone, but
Yeah.
mostly, they only knew that belonging. They only knew that community, family, the village.
Yeah.
It's about the collective. It's
Yeah.
not about you as an individual. So that
Yeah.
for most people, it wasn't even like on their
Yeah.
radar,
Yeah.
or if it was like, well, you can't pursue that because it's
Yeah.
about the collective.
Yeah.
And now I guess obviously everyone wants the same things,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever generation you're in,
Yeah.
whoever you are, the basic human things, and not talking career goals, but the basic human needs, we all want the same stuff. I guess that just certain generations are more in the position to go after that than other generations.
Well,
And
if you look at the job market itself, so we don't stay for a company for 20 years, 25 years. It
exactly.
doesn't, yeah. So it doesn't become our family. Same with, well, you experience yourself, religion. So before that, I think there was maybe a stronger communities within religion. We don't have that. So, so I've heard this quote once. Our church is the club. But yeah, where do you go to spaces where you find like-minded and a collective? It's really hard to find. And I think the beauty of community, or in that sense, in any community, is usually when there's a diversity in types of people, also with different backgrounds, different views, different ages, and all that. That's what you see in communities, like in villages or in religion and all that. And we don't have that, so we are stuck with the same people ourselves. But yeah, that's like to say that look us like us. So we live how do you say that? In Dutch I couldn't say, but like we make each other crazy in the sense that we are comparing ourselves constantly. But if you are part of a community where some people are maybe not as fortunate, or in a different age range, or have different struggles, then you can relativate also your problems, or put things in perspective a bit better. And I think also be more compassionate towards each other.
And here's, I think, the blessing and the curse of having all that choice presented to you, and having all that global access, because previously you were literally stuck with your community. If you feel like, because just because you're born into something doesn't mean you belong there. Like we all know, like most of us listening will know this. Like some people, yes, they're lucky, you know, their place of birth and or country of birth, whatever, like they feel like they really belong, and others don't, for a number of reasons. And previously you were stuck with that. Like you didn't know that you could find people that would feel more like home, that were maybe similar to you. You would know that because there was no internet. There was no exposure to these options. But now, and it's a good and a bad thing, I guess. Now we are exposed to all these options. So if a company doesn't work for me and it's terrible, or something else doesn't, like for example, when I left Christianity, like or before, while I was like having questions and doubts and deconstructing for a long time, for years, I was alone with that. But once I discovered other people through the internet who were having the same questions, I started being more brave. And I thought, ooh, maybe there's a different way. So it means like there's options. I can leave if I want to. And if I didn't know that these people existed, I might have stayed.
And I think like, so we're all looking for this community or this feeling of home, right? But I think what you say is a curse in that sense. We're wandering too long sometimes, and then you really feel lost because there's so many choices to choose from. And then of course you get FOMO, like, oh, maybe I'm part of this too. I want to be part of this. And I think it's better if you have less choice, but also to actually choose and to actually or create that home, or just find that home quicker, and not to be paralyzed with the choices, because that's what you see. I see that with young people finding a job. They think like, oh, the next job should be a holy grail. It doesn't make sense.
That's the thing. Maybe you are too quick to leave instead of trying to make something work, because you know there's something else out there. So that's kind of the good and the bad, I guess. About all these choices. So you know, like when the miserable millennials when the miserable millennials come crying at your door, or in your inbox, I know you've worked with a lot of big brands and companies, and you speak and you do workshops. How do you help? But like what are the elements of like working on this struggle, on this millennial struggle? Which parts do you address?
So there's many things I address. So at least like I said, I give people the time to think. That's one. Just ask them the question they can, or just even just to rest. How often does that happen? Not to talk, not to do anything, not to look at a screen, but just sit there and it will be okay, talking to each other. That's one. So like I said, don't feel alone about it. Dare to open up and to get out of your comfort zone, because it's not as scary as you think. And I think it of course, when we're younger, it's really want to be part of something. You don't want to be bullied or anything, but now we're grown up. I can tell you, it doesn't do you as much as you think, or it doesn't hurt you as much as you think if you find someone with a different opinion, and that's okay. And but usually, often you will be surprised actually that someone else just feels the same way. So that's good. And I always also say it's like it's a lifelong learning. It's, if you look at, for example, going to the gym, you can get abs within a couple months if you really train hard. It's fine. But then what? How are you going to maintain that? Basically, you need to maintain it. That takes a long time to maintain it, right? And you don't always might feel like doing sports, or you may get injured, or you want to eat a bit more sometimes. So it's like, don't see it as one goal to strive for that happiness. See it as small things that you work on yourself, and that you continuously just work on yourself, and that's it, just little bits. And if it doesn't go well, there's always a tomorrow, and that's fine. Yeah, as long as you find, of course, a right balance in where you want to go, but don't see it as the end point. Yeah, that sounds such a cliche to say. It's about the journey.
But it is.
Yeah, it is about the journey. It is. I would say, don't shy away sometimes to ask yourself these hard questions, and also don't take like days or weeks to think about it. Just think about it quickly every day. Like, how do I feel? Do I feel right? Do I don't feel right? If I don't feel so good, what can I do today to help that? Do I manage? Maybe. If not, then there's always tomorrow, and you can ask yourself the same question. How do I feel? Maybe you feel better, maybe you don't. Because usually you know the answer. It's very often we know the answer what to do. It's just sometimes doing it, and give ourselves time and space and the love to actually be okay with that. It's if, for example, if you feel guilty, who else feels that? Nobody. So that's a bit of a waste of energy to feel guilty about something. If you don't clean your house for a week, especially if you live by yourself, so what? Yeah. Okay, then you always have a next week. So
you can do the pile of dishes next week.
Or you make your life easier. You just hire a cleaner. That's fine. Sometimes also making your life a bit easier for yourself, and it's of course a certain type of person, and we're all different type of people. But I think a lot of us right now, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and don't give ourselves the compassion to actually to take care of ourselves and treat ourselves in the right way.
It's funny to it seems, even like listening to you, sometimes I totally agree, but like sometimes it feels like so indulgent to think like, who am I to just like rest so much and like just have grace with myself and just take all the pressure of like, I need to get shit done. Like you know what I mean? Like it feels so like, who am I that I can do that? I'm sure you get that feeling as well.
Well, remember, I'm not sure if you did the exercise back then, but like let's say this internalization of this, what you must do for yourself and all that. So if you can look at it from a distance, if it was your younger self, if it was your if you can look at your younger self and that person said all these things, your younger self says like, I need to do all this and I cannot enjoy my life and blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't say that. Like, you're definitely right. You should not enjoy life. You should do all that work. No, so, like, isn't it? I think we judge each other too. Like, let's say, 200 days of the year, I can go on a holiday. Let's say I can do that. I think everybody would be jealous or really want that, but we all say, no, you cannot do that. No, that's not allowed. Why not?
Simply because someone one day set up a system where you have to work 330 days or whatever, and you can only take this amount of days off, like purely because we know that system. That's the only reason why we think that, isn't it?
So it's I hope that we are at the forefront of changing a little bit of the system. Well, you see that a bit now with work-life balance, that becomes more important, or at least there's more attention also with mental health, to not think about like, why is our society only so focused on being productive? I don't know. What is the use of being so productive? Does it make us happier? I don't know. Does it make society happier as a whole? What if we just take things slower and just, I wouldn't say that we have coffee all the time, but I would say we should invest more in the relationships that we have, I would say. At least you see that probably in a lot of research when you ask people that are dying, what do they regret the most? It's probably spending time on the things that they find important, as mostly people. So why not just start now? For example, the same thing, we do that with health. Like in, oh no, I cannot take some days off because, or I cannot have a coffee with you now because I need to finish something. Well, what is more important eventually in life? Yeah. Is it more that you filled in a nice Excel spreadsheet, or that you at least spend some time to listen to someone else's trouble and help the other person? I don't know. So
yeah, when you were talking, I was thinking about that as well. The 5 things dying people regret the most, like that study, and that I think there's a book as well. I was thinking exactly that, to look at life from the end,
yeah,
and think like, well, at the end, what actually matters,
yeah,
and who is this serving, this hamster wheel? Who is it really serving? Because if it's not serving me, why am I doing it?
but it's really hard to get out because we're so used to it and our environment runs around it. But I do think, I hope for the people that listen, that they're strong enough to at least, if they feel like they don't fit the hamster wheel, some people really fit it, but if they don't fit, to at least find a way to be confident and to step out, and to also to explain it to your environment, because probably they will understand it. And even they will understand it, that it makes you happier. They will understand it, that makes you healthier, that makes you more in touch with yourself and your environment.
Yeah,
no one can argue that.
And on a practical level, like, it is hard to get out of the hamster wheel as well, because we need to earn money, we need to live, we need to buy food, we need to pay bills, and also have enjoyment at the same time. So we need, and we want money as well. So on a practical level, it's very like, that's also what kind of keeps us in the loop, right? And you were mentioning before, when you were in your engineering job, and how you were aware of, like, you had to balance it, and you were taking precautions, and still you burned out. How did the burnout creep up on you? Why do you think that happened, if you were taking the right things to kind of balance it out?
So I thought, like, I should not work more than, well, what was it, 45 hours a week? I'm sure, 40-hour work week, but of course sometimes you do a bit more. But I knew that. So I didn't work more than 45 hours in a week. I thought, no, if I'm done, I'm done. But I think, and I think it comes to a point usually at the end, apparently research says at the end of 20s, beginning of 30s, that you really realize, okay, you don't need your parents. So what makes you really happy, and what kind of choices do you want to make, and how do you want to lead your life? And I realized that apparently I've lived a life that was not, that other people's expected from me. And the hard part was, I was actually really good at it too. So I couldn't see it, that it was not, it was far removed from myself. It was not who I really was. And
it wasn't about the balance. Like, it wasn't about, I could work a little bit less and I could have a little more time off. It was that you were doing something.
It was intrinsically,
true,
in my identity, it was not right what I was doing. That was the thing. I do think, of course, I'm also an entrepreneur. So sometimes you need to make money, and that's fine. But I think that we should focus less, that our whole life should be 100% fun. That sounds really weird to say this, but but life doesn't work that way. And you need your sorrows in that sense to make yourself happy. So if you have a job that is really there to earn money and to pay the bills, because unfortunately we live in this type of world, don't expect you also would love that job, So it's fine to do a job just for the money, but then at least create more time on the things that you do love, or that gives you energy. So it's all about a bit of the energy balance. Like, where does energy balance? Where's your energy balance now? Is it you're losing more energy because you're doing things that are maybe far removed from you, or are you gaining more energy in the end? And it's inevitable that we have to do things that we don't like, and that's fine. And there's a lot of workarounds to deal with it. For example, taxes and all that. So I just put on some good music. I have a good cup of coffee, and you just go for it. It's not always that I like it, but you can just go for it. But at least I hope you really gain more energy in the end, on a day, or on a regular basis, so you can deal with the things that you don't like.
So is energy a good indicator for kind of seeing how close you are to burnout?
Yeah, I think energy is definitely a good indicator because it's just, yeah, it's simple math and fuel, you know, you need fuel. And what often happens is that we probably in my sense, I little by little every day I lost a little bit more fuel than I gained. And I didn't realize it because you don't see it. I think when I realized it at some point that I did not feel right was when everybody asked me, well, and anyone else on the street, like, you know, hey, how are you? And I can only say I'm okay. I'm not great. I'm not really bad, but I'm okay. But I didn't really feel like myself, you know? And if you constantly answer you're busy or tired, that's definitely not a good thing, I would say. But you probably feel like that. So if you feel busy and tired, you know what to do. I don't have to tell you what you need to do, but you do have to do it then, you know, take a more rest or have more sleep. And then you need to trade off. Sometimes you need to cancel fun plans to actually get sleep. Yes, that's how it works.
That's true. That's true. And if that balance doesn't work, like with, you know, trying to work a little bit less or take more time off, saying no, if that doesn't work, then would you say the next step is really looking at, okay, do I have to make a huge change here?
Well, I have, of course, some exercises. So one of the exercises you can do, yes, look at the end. What like you said, all the way in the, it sounds a bit depressing, but the end of your life, what matters? Or you can also do an exercise of what are your needs in life in general? And just to think about, like, maybe it's people, maybe it's sports, maybe it is financial means to do what you want to do. And then you just step by step, like I said, it's an ongoing process. Just try to change little by little. Don't think about like, okay, tomorrow I need to do sports. From tomorrow I need to do sports 5 times a week, and then I have to do this and this and this and this. No,
I quit my job.
yeah. Change is not. You can do it little by little, and if you look at a job perspective or anything in life, see it as a learning opportunity. So maybe not quit your job straight away, but just see, what can I learn from this? What do I gain from this? How does it contribute in my personal development or in my perseverance or resilience? Or maybe I can meet interesting people via this job, or gain new skills or get new courses. I think it's really easy to look at the negative things. But you can also use, in that sense, I wouldn't say misuse, but use your job to get to your next step. So just think about, okay, what is my next step? Maybe you do want to transition to really a new profession. What do I need before that? Maybe I need some savings. Sure, how do I get these savings? And then you just know, okay, I just need this job to at least pay the bills and get some savings. And on the side, maybe an hour a week, I'll just work on what I love. And so you gradually work to your next step instead of thinking like, oh, now I need to do everything at once and really just change everything. No, why? Change is harder for us as people. You see, with New Year's resolutions, so you better just do it gradually, so at least becomes part of your system instead of having it done it a couple of weeks and then quit it again.
Beautiful. That is the perfect way to end this conversation. I love the idea of making change part of your system, like a muscle, training that so it becomes easier.
I think it was this, I don't know, I've read one half management book, but there was one story that really inspired me. I think it was Coulter, and he said about these penguins. It's mostly about change management, but it was this, let's say, fiction, a colony of penguins, and a couple of them realized, oh no, it's melting here, we need to move. But the big part, usually ourselves also don't see it. Why should we move? It's still enough ice, we can still live here. And then you make a plan. So maybe you explore a little bit, like, where can we go? Where can we go? So a couple of these penguins go to another, explore where they are. And then eventually you need to convince, of course, the bigger crowd to get with you. But once you get to the new island, you can change your mindset. Okay, maybe we're constantly looking for a new island instead of waiting until it's too late. We constantly are already at the front of it. So like you said, learning and changing as a muscle, and have it constant in your life. Because I think life, especially nowadays, asks us to be very flexible. If you see it already with Corona and the measures that we have to take, yes, lockdown, no lockdown, oh yes, we can travel or not. It asks a lot of flexibility in ourselves, and I think millennials are very good at that already. But yeah, it we need to give ourselves time and maybe have that mindset that is just going to happen in future anyway.
Thank you so much, Wing.
You're welcome.
This was really refreshing and encouraging, like to hear from my millennial soul.
Well, I think for the last tip, just for you, well, we talked a little bit before, but like discovering who you are, and it's really scary because at some point you don't know what has been told, or what is really you. I think the basis goes to, I always say, if you really need it, take a week off and just do what you really feel like it. And that's really hard. It's harder than you think. But let's say you get up and you just do what you feel like. And if it's just going back to bed, go back to bed. If you feel like I want to have some food, I will have some food. If you say I want to go out, you go outside. But don't think about, oh no, I need to do the dishes first. Or no, I need to do cleaning before I can do this. Before this and do that. No, just go back to basics, being a bit primal, basically, and just to do what gives that impulse in you. And for intellectual people, it sounds like, oh, that's stupid because you're rationalizing everything. But no, I think that should be in sync, the body and the mind. And if you can't do that, then at some point you realize who are you really, because then you do things on your own feeling.
That's a great exercise. Thank you. I do sometimes have days like that.
Okay, that's good. That's really nice.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Really love talking to you, and I think what you do is really great. Kind of being out there and saving our reputation. Thank you.
Well, they need us at some point. People need us. We are, yeah. So
we are needed. We are the glue. Yes, we are the link. We're the link between the old world and the new world.
Yeah. So they need us. So
it's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard to be the glue. We're stretched. We're being stretched so much.
Yeah.
But it's great, and I love it. And again, thank you so much. And I hope you have a great weekend.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking me. I hope so too.